You're sitting in your living room in America. It's 3 a.m. on January 17, 1991. You turn on CNN. Bernard Shaw's voice comes through, tense and urgent. Something is happening outside. Then another voice. Oh wow, holy cow, that was a large airburst that we saw. You're watching in real time as Baghdad gets bombed. Green tracer fire streaking across your television screen. Explosions lighting up the night sky. This isn't footage from yesterday. This is happening right now, 6,000 miles away, broadcast live into your home. You're watching a war start. Nobody in human history had ever done that before. Welcome back to Gulf War Chronicles. Today we're talking about how Desert Storm became the first war broadcast live on television and changed everything about how wars are fought, covered, and understood. CNN went from a scrappy underdog cable channel to a global powerhouse overnight. Military commanders had to plan operations knowing the enemy was watching the same CNN broadcasts they were. Politicians made decisions based on images beamed around the world in seconds. And reporters became part of the story in ways that made World War II correspondents look tame. This is the story of the CNN effect. Before Desert Storm, war coverage meant reporters traveling with military units, filing stories that would be broadcast hours or days later. In Vietnam, camera crews would film battles, fly the film back to Saigon, ship it to New York, process it, edit it, and broadcast it days after the fighting happened. You watched the war, but you watched it on a delay. There was time for military censors to review footage, time for context and analysis, time for officials to control the narrative. Desert Storm destroyed that model completely. CNN had set up a 4-wire telephone line from their Baghdad hotel to their headquarters in Atlanta. This wasn't supposed to be possible. The Iraqi government controlled all communications. But CNN paid for a dedicated line months before the war started. When the air campaign began and Iraqi authorities cut most international phone lines, CNN's 4-wire somehow stayed connected. Bernard Shaw, John Holliman, and Peter Arnett became the only Western journalists able to broadcast from Baghdad as bombs fell. Their audio-only coverage, describing what they could see from their hotel window, became the most watched news event in television history up to that point. Shaw's voice trying to stay calm while describing incoming missiles. Now the sirens are sounding for the first time. The Iraqis have informed us. Boom, explosion in the background. Whoa, holy cow, that was a large airburst right over. That was a large burst. We just heard whoa. This wasn't a polished news report. This was 3 journalists taking cover under a desk describing a war happening around them in real time. Millions watched, transfixed. Wars weren't supposed to look like this. You weren't supposed to hear the fear in reporters' voices. The Pentagon was furious and fascinated. On one hand, CNN was broadcasting from enemy territory. What if they revealed sensitive information? What if they showed coalition failures or casualties? On the other hand, Iraqi leaders were also watching CNN. Saddam Hussein reportedly watched CNN constantly during the war. So the Pentagon realized they could use CNN to send messages to Iraq. It became a bizarre situation where both sides were watching the same news channel and using it for intelligence and propaganda. General Norman Schwarzkopf understood this better than anyone. He used press briefings to shape the narrative. Those famous briefings where Schwarzkopf showed video of laser-guided bombs going through building windows. Those weren't just for American audiences. Iraqi commanders were watching too. Schwarzkopf was sending a message. We can hit anything we want with perfect precision. Surrender now. The briefings became psychological operations, weaponizing media coverage to demoralize the enemy. But live coverage created problems the military hadn't faced before. When Iraqi Scud missiles hit Dhahran and killed 28 Americans, CNN broadcasted immediately. Families back home learned their sons might be dead from television before the military could notify them through official channels. That was a nightmare. The military had procedures for casualty notification, trained officers visiting families in person. CNN bypassed all of that. Families would see 28 killed in Scud attack, and spend hours terrified, waiting to find out if their loved one was among the dead. Pool reporters embedded with military units created different issues. The Pentagon had set up a pool system where a small number of reporters would travel with combat units and share their footage and stories with other news organizations. The military controlled where pool reporters could go and what they could report. This was supposed to balance operational security with press freedom. It didn't work. Reporters hated it. They felt censored and manipulated. Some reporters broke away from the pools and went out on their own, hitching rides with military units or traveling independently through the desert. Bob Simon from CBS was one of those independent reporters. He and his crew drove into Kuwait trying to get footage ahead of the ground war. Iraqi forces captured them. They spent 40 days as prisoners before being released after the war. Simon later said the Iraqi soldiers who captured them were more interested in complaining about being bombed than in interrogating journalists. But his capture showed the risks of independent reporting in a war zone. The military's response was basically, "We told you to stay in the pool." Arthur Kent, the Scud stud from NBC, became a celebrity by reporting from Saudi Arabia while Scud missiles fell. He'd be doing live shots, sirens would go off warning of incoming Scuds, he'd put on his gas mask on camera and keep reporting. American audiences loved it. Kent became a sex symbol. Reporters joked about how ridiculously good-looking he was while wearing combat gear. The whole thing was surreal. War coverage was becoming entertainment, journalists becoming stars. The technology made it possible, but also created absurd moments. Reporters standing in front of cameras with satellite uplinks, wearing chemical warfare suits because of Scud alerts, describing battles happening just over the horizon that they couldn't actually see. It looked like war coverage, but it was often just reporters narrating events based on military briefings and rumors. The visual of a reporter in the desert with explosions in the distance became iconic even when the reporter had no idea what those explosions actually were. Peter Arnett stayed in Baghdad for the entire war, the only Western journalist there for most of it. This made him incredibly valuable. He had exclusive access to enemy territory during wartime, but it also made him controversial. Everything he reported had to get past Iraqi censors. So was he reporting news or Iraqi propaganda? Arnett defended himself, saying he was showing the world what was happening in Baghdad, including civilian casualties from coalition bombing. Critics said he was being used by Saddam. Both were probably partly right. The most controversial moment came when Arnett reported on what the Pentagon claimed was a command bunker that had been bombed. Iraqi officials said it was a civilian shelter. Arnett filmed the aftermath, bodies of women and children. The Pentagon insisted it was a legitimate military target that civilians had been using as shelter. Arnett's footage of dead children aired globally. It became a huge controversy. Was coalition bombing killing civilians? Was Iraq using civilians as human shields? Was Arnett helping Iraqi propaganda? The incident showed how live war coverage created narrative battles alongside the actual fighting. The Highway of Death footage had similar impact. When pools of reporters arrived at Highway 80 after coalition aircraft had destroyed the Iraqi convoy, they filmed miles of destroyed vehicles. The images were apocalyptic: burned trucks, destroyed tanks, evidence of absolute destruction. Those images went global immediately. Public opinion shifted. People started questioning whether the war had become excessive. Some historians think those images influenced President Bush's decision to call a ceasefire. That's the CNN effect in action. Live television footage directly affecting strategic military decisions. The term CNN effect became shorthand for how real-time media coverage changes decision-making. Military planners now had to consider how operations would look on television. Would bombing this target create images that would turn public opinion against the war? Politicians had to react to events on CNN's timeline, not on their own schedule. Generals complained that enemies could watch their press briefings and adjust tactics accordingly. Everyone agreed war had changed, but nobody was sure if it was for better or worse. After Desert Storm, every conflict has been fought with live media coverage. Bosnia, Kosovo, Afghanistan, Iraq again in 2003, Syria, Ukraine. Each war had embedded reporters, live feeds, instant social media updates. The technology got better: satellites, the internet, smartphones, but the basic dynamic started in Desert Storm. Wars are now fought knowing that billions of people can watch in real time. That changes everything. For journalists, Desert Storm created a template that's still used. Embed with military units for access. Do live shots from forward positions. Become part of the story. Reporters like Richard Engel and Christiane Amanpour built entire careers on the model established in '91. War reporting became more immediate, more visual, more dramatic. Whether it became more accurate or informative is debatable. The soldiers who fought Desert Storm had mixed feelings about the coverage. Some appreciated that Americans back home could see what they were experiencing. Others felt the media sensationalized things or got facts wrong. Many hated having cameras around during combat, but all of them understood that this was now part of warfare. Fight the enemy while being filmed for global television. It added pressure to an already stressful situation. If you remember watching Desert Storm on CNN, or if you were a journalist covering the war, or if you were a soldier dealing with media in the field, leave a comment below. The CNN effect is one of Desert Storm's most lasting legacies. Every war since has been fought on live television, for better or worse. Thanks for watching Gulf War Chronicles. Bernard Shaw describing bombs falling on Baghdad live on CNN wasn't just great television. It was a revolution in how wars are experienced by people not fighting them. We went from reading about wars days later to watching them unfold in our living rooms. That changed journalism, changed military operations, changed public understanding of war. The first war broadcast live. The first CNN war. The moment when war became something you watched in real time while eating dinner. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button. We're telling the complete story of Desert Storm, including how it changed not just military history but media history too. I'll see you in the next one.